component. What I was hoping is maybe if you got more planning grants in, then you could fund.
Definitely.
I gotta end that. Good afternoon, Ready 26. This is part one of a two-part funder webinar series, and we are going to be hearing from some public funders today. Debbie Warren is also here to moderate the panel. Enjoy.
Greetings, everybody. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. We have three panelists here who are going to talk about their public sector programs. I'll ask a few questions, and then they will hopefully be coming back to our Tuesday night event, and you can ask them some more questions, or we'll have their email addresses and phone numbers so you can contact them. So first, I want to introduce Melody Adams, who's the director of the Rural Grant Programs for the North Carolina Department of Commerce. Welcome, Melody.
All right. Great. Thank you, Debbie. It's nice to be here. I am the director of the Rural Grants Programs for the North Carolina Department of Commerce Rural Division, and I'm here to talk to you about three different programs that we administer within the Rural Division. The first is our Building Reuse Program, our Economic Infrastructure Program, our Demolition Program, and our Building Reuse Program. I'll start with our Infrastructure Program. That program is a program that provides grants to local governments to assist with the construction of public water, wastewater, natural gas, rail, or municipal electric systems. Local governments are required to put a match in for these grants of 5% of the grant amount. Priority for these programs, or this program, is given to the 80 most distressed counties in North Carolina, which are Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties. Priority is given to resident companies that have paid unemployment or income tax in North Carolina, and there are what we call clawback for this particular program, and that means that if the company does not create the jobs as required, that there is a repayment, and however, if the company does create and maintain the jobs as required, there is no repayment. The amount for each grant is determined by several different aspects of the project. The county tier that the project is in, whether the company will meet the wage standard in terms of what they will pay their employees, the business industry type. We have some priority industries that you'll find in the application, which are companies like manufacturing, processing, usually higher paying companies, and whether the business will provide at least 50% of employer paid health insurance. So as you can imagine, the higher each of these areas are in terms of what the company provides, the more money is available to the project, and certainly the lower tier will contribute to a higher grant amount. The maximum award for any grant is $250,000 for those lower type projects or projects in Tier 3 counties, and $500,000 for projects in Tier 1 and Tier 2 county. So in general, there is available between $5,000 and $12,500 per job, depending on the quality of the project. And our application materials make all of those indices very clear and will be helpful to you in determining what your project might be eligible for. A project example is a project in Pender County. A company called RC Creations had a big need, and you can see that the Department of Commerce and other funders came together to make this project happen. It is a significant investment for the state of North Carolina, and a significant number of jobs were created. And this is a picture of the project. Almost complete. The jobs have already been created, and is a tremendous project in Pender County. The next program I'll talk about is our Building Reuse Program, and this is a program that offers grants to local governments to assist companies in the renovation and or construction or expansion of buildings for reuse by businesses that will create new full-time jobs. All counties are eligible to participate. However, participants in Tier 3 counties, the project building must be in a rural census tract, and within our website we do have a wonderful interactive map that you can use to determine whether your Tier 3 project is in a rural census tract. In order to be eligible, the building must be vacant for at least 90 days. And shell buildings are eligible to participate as long as they've been constructed for at least 5 years and have never had the finishing, upfit, and a tenant. We also have, that was the vacant building category, and our existing building category is available for existing North Carolina companies that have been in their current building for at least 12 months. And this is a program where we can offer grants to assist that company in expansion efforts that will lead to the creation of new full-time jobs. This is a tremendous program for local companies that are good corporate citizens within your communities to assist them in ways that are very similar to incentive programs, but are for your existing companies. So that's been a very very popular program, and has done a lot of good for communities in the state. The last building program we have is our healthcare program, and this program can be used to renovate, expand, or construct healthcare facilities in rural counties. For all of our programs, a dollar-for-dollar match is required, plus 5% from the local government. And this program, like our infrastructure program, is a forgivable loan. So if the company creates the jobs that they committed and maintain them for the required period of time, no repayment is required. So building reuse funding levels are very similar to infrastructure, meaning that the lower the tier level, the higher the potential funds, along with the wage standard, whether the company meets the wage standard, the business industry type, and whether the company will provide benefits. Again, in Tier 3 counties, $250,000 is the match, and for those lower paying jobs, also $250,000, and for Tier 1 and Tier 2, $500,000 for those higher paying and benefit jobs. Again, between $5,000 and $12,500 per job is what is available. An example of the building reuse program is the Strum Ruger and Company project in Mayodan. The building was 191,700 square feet. You can see that there was a significant investment, over $28 million by the company, and the company pledged and is well on its way to creating 500 new full-time jobs in Mayodan. So a very good project there. Our last program is our newest program. It's our Rural Demolition program, and the objective of this program is to support the demolition of a vacant building to encourage site rehabilitation for use in economic development purposes. The building must have been vacant for at least 3 years prior to the proposed demolition, and the unit of local government has to have control of the property, meaning that there needs to be some sort of development agreement between the property owner and the local government that would arrange for and set aside the terms for the private company to receive the grant funds and any requirements that the local government will put on the redevelopment. The funding availability is up to $75,000 for buildings of 100,000 square feet or less, and up to $150,000 for buildings that are 100,000 square feet and above. The only expense that is eligible is the demolition and removal of materials. soft costs such as phase 1 development, phase 1 site development plans, lawyer, attorney fees, planning fees, those types of things are not eligible. However, the local government is required to put a match in, and those costs can be considered toward the match. So those ineligible costs are eligible for the match as long as they have been completed in the last 12 months. The main thing to remember about this program is that post-demolition uses of the cleared property are for economic development purposes only. Government uses, recreation uses, parking, retail, and housing are ineligible uses for 5 years after the demolition. So those are the 3 programs, and there is my contact information, and I am the program manager for the Economic Infrastructure Program and also the Rural Demolition Program, and Hazel Edmond is the program manager for Building Reuse, and our contact information along with our website is there for you to go out and check out our information.
Thank you, Melody. I have a few questions.
Sure, great.
So for each of the programs you talked about, the infrastructure and the different reuse programs, approximately how many dollars are available this year, and how does that compare to last year?
Well, you know, certainly we're in the budget, so coming up for the next fiscal year, we have about $15 million available if nothing changes in the budget, and that's a little bit more than we had last year.
Is that for all of the programs?
It is, and we have not designated any specific amount for any one program. So the entire balance is available for any project across any of our program areas.
And so that will depend upon demand?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you don't set that ahead of time?
Absolutely. And demand is always very high for our programs. We typically get quite a few more grants than we can actually fund.
And can you talk about what would be an example or a typical example of a project that doesn't get funded in each of the categories? You know, where do they stumble traditionally?
Certainly. They typically stumble where they don't include the required application materials and don't, you know, put together a well thought out and you know, well put together application.
Okay. And would you say that these grants are typically going for large businesses, and a small business, you know, with 10 or 15 employees would usually not avail themselves, or you've seen something different?
Not at all. Not at all. We have industry sizes anywhere from the 500 job project that you saw down to, you know, 5 job projects, and we treat them equally. Typically, our smaller projects, smaller job projects, are in smaller communities where we expect that there is less economic activity, and that the smaller job projects are really what's going on there. So,
and for the counting of the jobs, how many years afterwards do you hold the local government accountable?
Well, they're required to maintain the jobs for 6 consecutive months, and once they do that, we release them from the loan. And certainly the expectation is those jobs will stick around, but we're not, you know, we're not actively managing or counting those jobs at that point.
And for example, so particularly thinking about the building reuse, restaurant jobs, most of them are not full-time jobs. Do you add up part-time jobs?
We don't count full-time equivalents or part-time jobs. It's one person who works at least 35 hours per week and is paid at least minimum wage for our lowest tier of jobs, our $5,000 per job tier of jobs. And then the expectation is, say, for a restaurant, that you would only have 1 or 2 full-time jobs that would be counted, like a manager or something like that. So those are typically very small.
Okay. And what other funds do local governments typically use to match or leverage, or is that mainly coming from the company?
Mainly from the company. However, you saw in this infrastructure, the infrastructure program, a number of different funders can come into play. But for building reuse, it's typically the local government puts in 5% and the company puts in the rest.
Okay. And last question. For these different programs, would you say that the grants have been distributed pretty evenly around the rural counties in the state, or where would you say there's some scarcity? And of demand?
Well, we're in 77 counties so far over the last 2 years, so there are 27 counties out there that we're not yet in, and those counties are some of the counties that you would expect that might have a little bit lower capacity to be able to put together a project and submit an application. So this coming year, a big focus of ours will be to get out to those 27 counties and other municipalities in the other 77 and try to get projects from communities that we haven't received them from.
Okay. And then final question, I promise. For the demolition program, I assume you haven't made any grants yet?
We haven't.
So that is totally new.
Brand new.
Brand new. Okay.
We expect to make a grant in our next round, which we've already received applications for those, and we'll make awards on June 23rd. We do intake applications every 2 months, and our board meets every about 2 months later to approve the grant recommendations.
Okay. And as far as you can, you're anticipating that the legislature will continue to fund at this level of $15 million?
That's our hope.
That's your hope.
We haven't gotten
Okay.
any indication that it's different, so, but that's our hope.
Well, Melody, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Next up, we have Julie Cabetta, who is supervisor of the CDBG Infrastructure Unit, Division of Water Infrastructure, Department of Environmental Quality for the state.
Oh, there it is, Bernie.
And thanks to Misty for her great work. And here's Julie.
Good afternoon. The CDBG program is a federal program administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Traditionally, the program has funded housing rehabilitation. However, it's always been able to fund not just the housing rehabilitation, but public infrastructure and public services. The funds are divided nationally into 2 pots. You have entitlement funds and you have non-entitlement funds. Entitlement funds are awarded directly from HUD to major metropolitan areas, and those are considered to be those with populations greater than 50,000. Non-entitlement funds are awarded to the state, and then the state distributes those funds usually to small rural places. North Carolina receives one of the highest allocations of funding in the country, approximately $43 million a year. The General Assembly dictates where those monies will go and what they will fund. So in North Carolina, funding goes to critically needed water and sewer infrastructure and to infrastructure projects that result in job creation.
It's not working.
Thank you. Funds for water and sewer are administered by the Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Water Infrastructure, and funds for economic development are administered by the Department of Commerce, the Rural Development Division. Approximately $43 million per year is divided into $26 million per year for water and sewer infrastructure and about $16 million per year for economic development. The additional $1 million that is not accounted for here goes into administration. Funds for water and sewer are distributed in a competitive process with applications due every September with awards made by the State Water Infrastructure Authority in January. So, who is this Water Infrastructure Authority? It's a non-member board created in 2013 to oversee all funding decisions made by the Division of Water Infrastructure. 2 members are appointed by the House, 2 by the Senate, and 2 by the Governor, and 3 are ex officio. Those ex officio members represent the Secretary of Commerce, the State Treasurer's Office, and the Director of the Water Infrastructure Division. And the Division Director also serves as chair. This board makes all funding decisions. They may make decisions that correspond to the rankings that staff attaches to a grant application, or they may fund anything they want based on special considerations that are indicated in the application. So what do we fund? What do we wind up funding? Typically, the majority of the projects that we fund are water and sewer rehabilitation projects, usually water and sewer line rehabilitation. A close second in terms of funded projects are the extensions of water and or sewer lines to serve residences that have failing wells or septic systems. And I guess I need to emphasize that this program can really only serve residential areas. We really cannot put money into an area where there are majority businesses, that kind of thing. A successful applicant is usually a small town with a high poverty rate, relatively high water and sewer rates, and a high low to moderate income population in the project area. The need for the project must be documented extremely well, and we give instructions on documenting that need in the guidance that we provide for you on our website. Also, the application must have completed all of the requirements of the program prior to submitting the application to the state. The threshold requirement for this program is that there must be a 51% low to moderate income percentage in the project area. And so to determine that LMI percentage, you must do income surveys, and then in some cases and for some projects you can use American Community Survey data instead of doing income surveys to confirm the low to moderate income percentage in the project area. When the income surveys are done, or when we refer to the American Community Survey data, other demographics are also gathered in the project area at the same time, and all of this is reported to HUD. And this data has to be gathered, summarized, and submitted in the application. In addition, the applicant must have a public hearing prior to submitting the application to the state. The public hearing has to cover certain topics, including an overview of the program, an overview of the project, a discussion of who benefits, how much the project will cost, and how much is being requested in the CDBG program. As an applicant, you must submit the public hearing notice, the approved meeting minutes, and an affidavit of publication from the newspaper in which the public meeting was noticed. So, why are these applications rejected? First of all, one of the number one reasons is that people fail to conduct the public hearings correctly. We would consider that application incomplete, and certainly in the next round, the applicant can come back with corrected public hearings, and we can accept the application. Another reason that it might not be funded is because of a failure to determine the low to moderate income percentage of the project area. And in some cases, it's a total failure. We can't tell what the LMI percentage of the project area is. So that's something that's absolutely critical, because we have to have documentation of that LMI percentage. There's also a failure to submit documentation of the problems the funding is supposed to fix. We have to know there's a problem in order to put federal money toward the infrastructure. Okay, for match, well, we don't require any match. You can match the CDBG funds with local funds, USDA, state revolving funds, or state grant funds. But we wanted to make this program accessible to the smallest and poorest communities. And those would be communities that perhaps couldn't put up a match or even afford, say, an environmental review document or an engineering report. So these funds are meant to go to the poorest places in North Carolina. So therefore, no engineering report or environmental document is required to apply. Those reports will be required after you are awarded funds, and CDBG funds can pay for it. You will be required, if you're awarded funds, to attend mandatory training on developing the environmental report, the engineering report, and complying with several federal regulations that are attached to the program. And this typically is about a day and a half to 2 days of training that we will provide to you. So where do you find information about this program? Here's the website. And you would click on I Need Funding on our website, and it'll pull up all of the application information and documentation associated with it. You can contact me, and there's my name, number, and email address. And also, we're in the midst of having How to Apply classes. Tomorrow, we will be at the DEQ Regional Office in Mooresville. May 17th at the High Country Council of Governments in Boone. The 18th will be at the Southwestern Commission in Silva. May 23rd will be in Wilmington at the new Hanover County Government Center. And then we'll repeat all of this all over again in July or August. We haven't figured out our dates yet. With the rest of the division programs, because in September the division will be taking in applications not just for the CDBG program, but also for the Clean Water State Revolving Funds and Drinking Water State Revolving Funds, which are loans, and then the Connect NC Bond Funds, which are grant funds that the state recently has voted through. So we'll have a lot of fun in July and August. If you have any questions, just give us a call. We'll be glad to talk to you. We'll be glad to sit down and work through a proposed project. If you do apply to us, if you finish your application prior to September 1st, we'll be glad to sit down and look at the application and offer hints on how to improve your application. So look into this program. I think it might be worthwhile.
Thank you, Julie. A few questions.
Yes.
So this year or last year, how many dollars were available for the program?
Typically every year with $26 million.
26 million?
For this particular one, yes.
And how competitive would you say it is?
Extremely competitive. Typically we have only been able to award about 1 in 8 applications that we get in.
So there's a lot of need out there.
Tremendous amount of need. We've received usually well over $100 million in requests for $26 million.
And could you give an example of a sort of a classic project, what it looks like, how big it is, who it serves? Or,
well, I'm not sure that.
Or just your favorite project?
Oh, favorite project. Favorite project. Well, it's hard to think of one. Okay, how about just a typical project? Our typical project will rehabilitate sewer lines. Usually, it's what we do. We wind up funding a little more sewer than we do water, and it's meant to take care of inflow and infiltration or sewer surcharges, that kind of thing. And I guess the best example that we had of one of those is in the town of Andrews. Mm-hmm. They are rehabilitating a line that is in Andrews that was causing backups into homes. Mm. And so hopefully that'll take care of that problem, and they'll be able to either rehabilitate those houses and move back in, or maybe tear them down. I don't know. But
and typically they serve 10 houses, 50 houses, I mean, or it's all over the place?
It's all over the place. It's anywhere from, I think our smallest one serves 9 houses. Mm-hmm. Then we have gone up to serving entire towns with projects at water plants or wastewater treatment plants.
Great. And do you anticipate any changes to the program that are significant in the years ahead?
Not in the coming round, no. In the years ahead, we don't know. We are still attempting to streamline and parallel all of this, the funding programs in the division, both the loan and grant programs. And so we've adopted basically the same point criteria for all of the programs. Mm-hmm. And so if the state revolving funds, for instance, decide to add something, then we may need to. And then we may also want to add things, depending on what we see needs for in the future.
So this kind of coordination is new because CDBG didn't used to be in DEQ, is
That's
that
true.
right? And when did it move to DEQ?
2013.
2013.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're in a new ball game.
Yes, absolutely.
Good. Well, thank you, Julie.
Appreciate
it. Mm-hmm. So our final presenter will be Bruce Pledden, and now we're on the federal level. Bruce is the Director of the Business and Cooperative Programs for Rural Development at USDA. Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, thank you. I always like to begin talking about rural development as a mission area within U.S. Department of Agriculture, which is a federal agency. I work with the Business Programs Division within USDA Rural Development, which provides programs. We administer about a dozen loan and grant programs specifically to help create and retain jobs in rural areas. And our office serves the entire state of North Carolina. We define rural as 50,000 in population or less. There are some nuances to that definition, which also may impact some contiguous urbanized areas adjacent to some of the larger metropolitan towns, but generally most of the rural areas of the state are covered under our programs. There are about a dozen programs that we administer, but I want to mention about 6 of them today, starting with our flagship program, which is our Business and Industry Loan Guarantee Program. And I say flagship just simply because it's, in terms of the dollars, it's the largest volume program that we do administer within the agency. And nationwide, we administer close to $1 billion in loan guarantees. And in North Carolina, our allocation of that may be roughly $30 million. And typically, we would expect to administer about $30 to $50 million in loan guarantees in any given year. These are loan guarantees made through banks, credit unions, and other lenders that work directly with businesses to assist them in providing the credit that they need to either start up or expand or to be able to equip a business. And we're able to do this through either helping the lender extend the term beyond their normal limits, or provide rates that are more affordable as a result of the guarantee. And so this is a way to assist a business to be able to either locate or start up in a rural area that otherwise may not be able to afford traditional credit through conventional sources. The next program I want to mention is still a loan program, but it's our intermediary relending program that relies on nonprofit organizations or electric cooperatives, or even in some cases public bodies that may administer loans directly to applicants' businesses. These can be microloans, loans up to $250,000 in some cases, and these are available directly through our intermediaries. And we administer this program through our national offices funds, which are not allocated, but it is a competition that is held on a quarterly basis, and it is funded annually through the budget, and it's available year-round, and applications are made directly through intermediaries, these nonprofit organizations or other eligible applicants, directly to USDA Rural Development. Our Rural Micro-Entrepreneur Assistance Program is a technical assistance program that has a loan and grant component. Many times these funds are available through the same intermediaries that provide assistance through our intermediary lending program, and these are generally loans for up to $50,000. And again, this is a program that we do not receive an allocation for, but applications are made directly through the Rural Development State Office to the national office in Washington, D.C. One of the grant programs that we administer that I think is perhaps the most popular for rural communities and nonprofit organizations is our Rural Business Development Grant Program. This program is available to nonprofit organizations, public bodies, and federally recognized Indian tribes. This program provides funds for either what we call enterprise grants or opportunity grants. The distinction is, it may be subtle in some ways, and I'll just only mention, just because you may have heard about the Rural Business Enterprise Grant Program or the Rural Business Opportunity Grant Program, which is the predecessor to the Rural Business Development Grant Program. This is a program that basically combines the two. So to replace the Rural Business Enterprise, or RBEG, or the Rural Business Opportunity Grant, or RBOG, we now have the RBDG program, which provides financing to help either establish or develop private or nonprofit business enterprises, or to provide strategic planning or area-wide projects that are consistent with local plans. And these programs provide small businesses, which are defined as businesses with up to $1 million in projected gross revenues and no more than 50 new employees, the opportunity to either expand or start up. And there's several ways in which that can be done. That can be accomplished through either business incubators, the acquisition of land or equipment to be used through this grant, the purchase of equipment for those types of facilities, or for use or for shared use through a revolving loan fund, through infrastructure improvements such as water, sewer, or through technical assistance. Any of those purposes could potentially result in an eligible purpose for the Rural Business Development Grant Program. The grant cycle is generally going to be from the 1st of October, which is the beginning of our fiscal year, and applications are usually due in the area office sometime in January. Those dates are usually established at the beginning of the federal fiscal year. And so we actually will review those applications funded, and by the end of May or April, in this case, we've actually already made the selections for this year, and funding will generally be available sometime during the month of June. These projects can range in size. We have taken a new approach this past year, to try to attract projects that we believe will have an impact in terms of job creation or helping to assist businesses start up. And so what we have done, even though we receive only a small allocation, usually it's going to be about $900,000 to $1 million, we have tried to encourage projects that would be anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000 in grant funds, in order to be able to have a larger impact. Prior to this past year, our average grant was about $75,000. So we're hoping to make this program a very competitive program to attract projects that will have a significant impact to the rural areas. A couple other programs I wanted to mention, just to, in case others may know someone that, and these are open to either agricultural producers, or in the case of this first one, the Rural Energy for America program, to rural small businesses. The Rural Energy for America program, or REAP as we refer to it, is available as a loan program and a grant program to either develop rural or renewable energy systems, or to make energy efficiency improvements to either farms or rural small businesses. These loans or loan guarantees can provide assistance in getting funding for solar farms, for hydroelectric projects, for anaerobic digesters, any type of renewable energy system that is commercially available. The grant component of the REAP program can provide grant funds up to 25% of eligible project costs, to include the cost of starting either solar, whether it be on a utility scale or commercial scale, making poultry house improvements. For small businesses, it could include refrigeration, heating, cooling, HVAC. It could include lighting. And in some cases, farmers that use center pivot irrigation, for instance, may convert from a diesel power to electric. So there's a lot of applications, a lot of potential small businesses that could benefit from reducing their energy costs through that program. There are federal funds available. North Carolina does receive an allocation for this program, and there's also a reserve pool which is available for us to tap into. The value-added producer grant program is a program that is available exclusively to agriculture producers that are engaged in value-added enterprises, taking a raw commodity and through either some form of processing or because of the way it is grown and marketed, it meets the definition of a value-added product. And for this program, we can provide up to a dollar-for-dollar match for costs that would help pay for marketing expense, for processing a commodity, and that could include the cost of processing as well as transportation of a product to the market. This program, it is a nationally competitive program. We do not receive an allocation for that, but this year we will have approximately $40 million nationwide available, and this is the most funding that has been available in the history of the program. I think there may have been one other year where were even close to that level. So we believe this year offers an excellent opportunity for agricultural producers. However, the application deadline is July 1, and this is a program that applicants cannot wait until the last minute to be able to apply. So we're hoping that we're going to be able to get some good applications to be able to assist some ag producers this program this year. So through the BNI, the REAP, the RBDG, IRP, RMAP, and Value-Added Producer Grant, we have 6 programs that we believe are of interest to people in rural communities and towns, and we have assisted a number of people throughout the state over the years, and they're available, and we want everyone who sees an opportunity to be able to take advantage of it.
Thank you, Bruce. And typically, and maybe it varies for the program, who puts together these kinds of grant proposals or loan proposals?
Typically, we know that that grant applicants may be, if it's a nonprofit, it could be the executive director of the nonprofit. In some cases, a grant writer or consultant may be obtained to be able to help provide those sorts of services. If it's an individual or farmer that is interested in applying for the Value-Added Producer Grant Program, we do have a template on our website which could lead the person, the applicant, through that process. However, if preparing a proposal is something that you're not accustomed to doing, I would suggest that at least you start early and solicit some help. And particularly for some of these very competitive programs where there is a deadline, and it's important that the application be considered complete and eligible in order to be able to obtain funding. So particularly in those cases, I would recommend that the applicant consult with us and talk with us and develop a level of comfort to apply and to determine whether or not they should enlist the services of a grant writer or some other form of help to be able to make that application.
So for these programs, typically local government is not involved. Is that correct?
That is correct, unless sometimes we do receive in the Rural Business Development Grant Program a county, even in some cases it may be a community college which operates as a public body that would apply. So it is possible, but in those cases there may be someone within the organization. It could be the economic developer. It could be the assistant county manager, even the county manager in some cases, that would actually make the application. But particularly for some of our programs, we do a lot of hand-holding and we can assist. And so it's certainly not a requirement, but a lot of communication really goes a long way to ensuring that that the application is going to be complete and eligible.
And can you give an example for the loan guarantee program, sort of the size of the business that typically, or the size of the guarantee?
Sure. Our guarantees may range anywhere from $100,000 up to $10 million. In fact, we can, through administrator approval, can actually approve guarantees up to $25 million. But typically our sweet spot seems to be in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 million. And in a typical business, it could be a manufacturing business, it could be a hotel, it could be a service-oriented business. Any business that is legal, that creates a job in a rural area, could potentially be eligible. And there's just very few exceptions. For instance, golf courses, we cannot assist, and certain types of businesses that involves gambling or race tracks that involves a purse. Those types of businesses may not be eligible, but and strictly production agriculture for the most part is not eligible, and there is a misnomer that we provide only ag loans, and that is usually provided by one of our sister agencies, the Farm Service Agency. But we can assist with assist agribusinesses and the processing businesses that process agricultural commodities.
Mm-hmm. And from your point of view as the administrator, as the director, what's the most challenging thing for you for these programs?
I think for particularly with the grant programs, the most challenging part is getting the application to be complete and eligible prior to a deadline. And it seems like within our funding cycles, we'll get applications just prior to a deadline, where there's not really an opportunity for a rewrite of the application, and the application may be missing significant information, or there may be components of the request that are not eligible, or there may be conflicts of interest that was inadvertent, but nevertheless would make an application not eligible. And particularly for the Rural Business Development Grant, even though that is for businesses, it cannot be for the applicant's own use, but the benefits must accrue to the businesses, but it cannot be a pass-through grant just to an eligible business. It would need to be delivered in the form of some type of assistance, whether it be technical assistance or through a revolving loan fund or through the lease of equipment or real estate space. So, not understanding, some of those, general guidelines is probably some of the biggest challenges that we face.
And for folks who need help, do they have to come to Raleigh or?
No. We administer the Rural Business Development Grant Program through our area offices, and we have 6 of those strategically located throughout the state. And we can put you in touch with the one that's most convenient to you. And of course, now with internet and we can provide a lot of assistance electronically.
And for the other programs, then it is directly talking to Raleigh, is that correct?
Yes. For the other programs, generally there's a contact. There may be a business program specialist that may be. We have one in the west and one in the eastern part of the state. They would be, of course, the contact for our business and industry loan guarantee, as well as our Rural Energy for America programs.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Bruce.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.